You've seen the name Honda 1,000 times, on cars, on motorcycles, on lawnmowers, even jet engines. But behind the logo is a story most people have never heard. It starts in Japan, 1922. A 15-year-old boy steps off a train in Tokyo. No suitcase, no formal education, just a head full of engine parts and a vague idea that he wants to fix things. His name is Soichiro Honda. And trust me, by the end of this story, you'll never look at a Honda the same way again. Soichiro didn't grow up in a city. He wasn't a prodigy. He was just curious, obsessed with machines, raised in a tiny village where his father fixed bicycles and his mother wove fabric at home. He didn't care much for school, but anything with gears or pistons, that got his full attention. He wasn't hired to build engines, not at first. They handed him a broom and a baby to carry. That was his job. But Soichiro watched, learned, waited, until one day he got his chance. From there, the path wasn't smooth. There were crashes, literal ones. Factories burned, his company collapsed, but every time he started over. Eventually, he built something that didn't just survive, but changed how the world moved. This isn't just a story about cars. It's about how someone with no money, no degree, and no connections built one of the most respected engineering brands in the world, from the ground up. This is the story of Soichiro Honda. Soichiro Honda was born in 1906 in a small village called Komyo, near Mount Fuji. Life there wasn't glamorous, and it definitely wasn't easy. Roads were dusty. Houses were wooden. Neighbors helped each other because they had to. His father Gihei ran a bicycle repair shop out of a wooden shed. His mother wove fabric and cared for the children. He spent hours at his father's repair shop, watching how gears aligned, how chains held tension, how metal bent under stress. And he didn't just watch, he got involved. By the time he was 12, he was fixing bikes on his own, not because anyone told him to, but because it made sense. Then one day, everything changed. He heard a sound he'd never heard before. A car rolled through the village, a black Ford Model T. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. It was loud, it smelled like oil, and it moved with a purpose that felt foreign. Everyone stared, but Soichiro didn't just stare. He ran, barefoot, down the dirt road, chasing it as far as he could. He didn't know what the machine was, but something about it flipped a switch in his head. That noise, that movement, that feeling, it stayed with him. Years later, when people asked why he got into engineering, he never pointed to money or ambition. He talked about that day, that car, that sound. At 15, he made a decision. He was done with school. He packed what little he had, said goodbye to his family, and bought a train ticket to Tokyo, over 150 miles away. He didn't have a plan, but he had a name. Art Shokai, one of the top automotive repair shops in the city. When he walked in and asked for a job, they didn't hand him a wrench. They handed him a broom and a baby, literally. His first job at Art Shokai was sweeping the floors and helping look after the owner's infant daughter. No tools, no engines, just diapers and dustpans. Most kids would have walked out, but Honda didn't. He stayed quiet. He swept the floor. He rocked the baby. But in between, he watched everything. Because even if he couldn't touch the machines, he could learn from the people who did. That patience would pay off. At Art Shokai, the days were long, and the engines were off limits. But Soichiro was paying attention. He memorized the tools by their sounds. He recognized problems just by the pitch of a misfiring motor. While the other workers were focused on their own tasks, he stood off to the side, absorbing everything. He wasn't the kid sweeping anymore. He was the quiet shadow in the corner who knew exactly how an engine breathed. Then came his moment. One afternoon, the shop was short-staffed. Too many cars, not enough hands. The owner looked around and saw Honda standing by the wall. "Think you can handle this?" he asked. No hesitation. Honda stepped up. It wasn't a big job, just an issue with a carburetor, but it was enough. He fixed it fast, clean, and with total focus. The mechanics watched, half surprised, half impressed. This kid had been sweeping floors, but clearly he'd been watching more than anyone realized. From that day on, things changed. Honda wasn't just the shop assistant anymore. He was a mechanic in training. He started helping with repairs, then leading them. Soon he was designing custom parts, solving problems others couldn't. His hands were fast, but his brain was faster. He didn't just fix things, he made them better than before. By 17, he wasn't just fixing cars, he was helping build race cars. Art Shokai had a reputation not just for repairs, but for innovation. The owner, Yuzo Sakakibara, loved motorsports, and he saw something special in Honda. Together, they began designing a new car to enter Japan's top race, the All-Japan Motor Vehicle Competition. The car was raw, hand-built, unproven, but it worked. In 1924, with Soichiro riding as the onboard mechanic, literally sitting in the car mid-race, monitoring every gauge, listening to every vibration, they won. It was Honda's first taste of victory, and it stuck. He didn't just love cars, he loved speed, precision, the art of motion. And he understood something that many people missed. Racing wasn't just a thrill, it was the ultimate testing ground. After the win, Honda stayed at Art Shokai for several more years. He built a name for himself, not as a businessman, but as a problem solver. He didn't chase titles. He didn't care about credit. He just wanted to understand machines on a deeper level than anyone else. But even as he mastered the garage, a quiet itch told him this wasn't enough. He had learned everything he could from Art Shokai. Now he needed a new challenge, something bigger, something of his own. In 1936, he left the shop that had given him everything, the training, the tools, the belief, and stepped out on his own. He didn't know it yet, but the path ahead would be brutal. A crash, a war, a company destroyed. Everything he built was about to fall apart. It was the next blueprint. 1945. Japan was in pieces. Cities flattened, industry gone, food scarce, fuel even scarcer. Hope evaporated, and Soichiro Honda, he had nothing. No business, no money, no equipment, just a restless mind and a country full of people desperate to move. Trains didn't run, roads were rubble, gasoline was a fantasy. But life still needed to happen. People needed to get to work, to markets, to schools. They needed motion. And that's when Honda spotted salvation in a pile of junk. He came across an old beat-up military generator. It had once powered radios for the Japanese army. Most people would have passed it by without a second look. But Honda didn't see junk. He saw potential. He took the engine, mounted it onto a bicycle frame, and started tinkering. It wasn't elegant. It sputtered. It rattled. It belched smoke, but it worked. That one bike, ugly, loud, barely stitched together, could move a person across town with no gas station, no infrastructure, no car. That meant everything. Neighbors came by, curious. Then they came back, begging, "Can you build me one? My cousin wants one too. My boss needs two." So he did. Using scrap parts and sheer will, Honda built one motorized bike after another. Demand exploded. Within months, he couldn't keep up. That's when he made it official. In 1946, in a small rented shack, he founded the Honda Technical Research Institute. Just 12 workers, no factory, no machinery, just benches, tools, and a vision. Their first product? The Honda Type A, a motorized bicycle powered by surplus generator engines. It was clunky, inefficient, but people didn't care. It worked. The Japanese public, still recovering from war and trauma, didn't need sleek. They needed functional, and Honda gave them that. Then came 1947, and the breakthrough. The team developed their own engine. No more relying on war leftovers, no more compromises. This one was purpose-built for transport. Compact, reliable, cheap. Suddenly, they weren't just bolting engines onto bikes. They were inventing new machines. In 1948, they rebranded as Honda Motor Company. The company was still tiny, still underfunded, but the ambition was enormous. And then came the Super Cub. It changed everything. Lightweight, easy to ride, incredibly fuel efficient. You didn't need to be strong. You didn't even need to wear pants. Honda famously designed it so a woman in a kimono could ride it comfortably. It was the motorcycle for people who didn't think they could ride motorcycles. And it worked. In Japan, orders skyrocketed. Shopkeepers lined up to carry it. Within months, the streets were full of cubs buzzing through alleys and avenues. But Honda wasn't done. He looked overseas, to the US, where motorcycles were loud, aggressive, macho machines. Harley-Davidson ruled the streets, leather jackets, tattooed arms, outlaw culture. So Honda did the opposite. He ran an ad campaign in America. You meet the nicest people on a Honda. No chains, no beards, just students, moms, teachers, regular folks, and it crushed. By the early 60s, Honda was the biggest motorcycle brand in the world. He didn't win by force. He won by understanding what people really needed. With smart design, with a refusal to quit. What came next would shock everyone, even him. But in Soichiro Honda's mind, motorcycles were only the beginning. Because the dream didn't start with a bike. It started with a car. The first vehicle they released in 1963 wasn't some grand sedan or performance car. It was the Honda T360, a tiny, boxy pickup truck with a 360cc engine, just under 30 horsepower. It looked like a lunchbox on wheels. But it was smart, efficient, built for Japan's narrow streets and post-war economy. It wasn't built to compete. It was built to serve. Then came the curveball, the Honda S500. This wasn't a utility vehicle. It was a red two-door roadster with a tiny four-cylinder engine and a 9,500 RPM redline. It used chain drive rear wheels, like a motorcycle. It was weird, ambitious, and mechanically fascinating. It didn't sell much, but that wasn't the point. The S500 was a signal. Honda was entering the car world on its own terms, not by copying others, by innovating. And then came the bombshell. In 1964, Honda entered Formula One. Let that sink in. A company that had never built a mass-market car was going to compete in the most advanced, most brutal, most prestigious motorsport in the world. By the late 1970s, Honda was everywhere. On the streets of Tokyo, on the freeways of Los Angeles, on racetracks from Suzuka to Silverstone. But Soichiro Honda didn't slow down to celebrate. Because the mission was never about beating Toyota or outselling Ford. It was about something deeper, about what machines could mean to people. But by 1973, after decades of chasing that vision, Soichiro Honda stepped down. He handed the company to a new generation, not because he was tired, but because he believed that leadership should evolve just like technology. Even in retirement, he kept tinkering, kept visiting factories, kept showing up in greasy coveralls, smiling as he poked his head into a new machine, or offered quiet advice to a younger engineer. And when asked what he was most proud of, after all the trophies, all the billions in sales, all the headlines, he didn't talk about the cars or the wins. He talked about the failures. My life, he said once, was nothing but mistakes, but I never made the same one twice. That was his philosophy. By the time he passed in 1991, Honda wasn't just a name. It was a global symbol of persistence and precision. Not just in cars, in engineering, in resilience, in the idea that if you keep building and keep learning, anything is possible. Today, Honda is still everywhere. Motorcycles, cars, jets, robotics. But beyond the machines, there's something bigger, a legacy. A blueprint for how to start with nothing and build something that lasts. Because the story of Soichiro Honda isn't about engines or race wins or product launches. It's about defiance, curiosity, grit. It's about a boy who ran barefoot down a dirt road after a car he didn't understand and spent his life chasing that sound. So if you're chasing something that feels too far away, too impossible, too insane, don't stop. Smash that like button if this story hit you where it counts. Drop a comment below with the dream you're chasing or the failure that taught you the most. And if you want more true stories about people who built something from nothing, hit subscribe. We've got more coming.